Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have to talk about a early hurdle that Paramount has just cleared with their acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, I'm just going to say it very plainly. This is one of many steps, but it's a step in the right direction, and it kind of has Netflix losing some of its teeth in its particular offer. And since Paramount's offering so much more money, there could be some really strange investigation stuff that goes along with it. And for that matter, there's also a lot to talk about here. So here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I'm trying to get to 50K. We are approaching it quickly, and that's thanks to you. So do me a small favor, double check you're still subscribed to the channel. And whether you're here for your first time or your 1000th time, just make sure that that little red button is turned gray and you've clicked on the silver bell button, then turned on all notifications. After that, a thumbs up and we're good to go. And then let me know your thoughts about Warner Brothers Paramount, because I'm really interested and it helps with the algorithm. So from our friends over at That Park Place, Paramount clears early antitrust hurdle in high-stakes Warner Brothers battle. The Paramount antitrust battle over Warner Brothers Discovery just took a significant turn, but despite early momentum, the road ahead remains anything but clear. And this is where I deviate with my friend Marvin. I think this actually is a significant step forward and is something that even Netflix would have to accomplish to make things move forward. You also have a lot of people in Hollywood favoring the deal with Paramount rather than the deal with Netflix. And that's for the obvious reason that you can't trust Netflix about whether or not they're going to be able to release movies into theaters like they promised. So Paramount Skydance announced it has cleared an initial Justice Department waiting period tied to its proposed $77.9 billion acquisition for Warner Brothers Discovery, which may still go up, at least the amount of money they're offering, that is. And on paper, that sounds like progress, but in reality, it's a little more complicated. And again, I do agree this is still kind of a complicated thing, but the reporting coming from Bloomberg and other sources are saying that there's no statutory impediment, which is a fancy way to say, really, we just have to see what this deal looks like ultimately and whether or not we believe it's going to interfere with competition. So at this point, the real focus is this one hurdle, which is the required waiting period has now expired. And you know what? That's a good thing. As we move on, in plain English, Paramount is saying that it has cleared an early procedural step in the U.S. antitrust review process. In fact, they've jumped through the second request, elements of the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act. And Paramount says it's fully complied and the waiting period has expired, so the government isn't immediately moving to block the deal, which I think is a good sign. Now, Netflix, of course, is going to fire back, and their propaganda campaign, for lack of a better way to describe it, is really kind of already underway. And they're even attacking people like James Cameron, who's in favor of Warner Brothers going to Paramount, along with a lot of other Hollywood people, as I mentioned before. So they've already got their own deal to require Warner Brothers out there. And of course, they're wanting the streaming business as well. They wasted no time pushing back on Paramount's victory framing, which I don't think it's framed as a victory. I think it's just one step forward. We have like a 4-part process here, and it's going to take a minute for all of this to happen. And we'll later in this story bring up all the things that are still kind of in the way. Netflix Chief Legal Officer David Hyman said in a statement that Paramount Skydance continues to mislead stockholders and distract from the facts. The facts are that the routine HSR milestones do not signal DOJ approval, nor that any decision has been made. They have not secured approvals needed to close, and they have a long way to go from doing so. Well, so does Netflix. Let's just be honest. The same hurdles that are there for Paramount are there for Netflix as well, including some regulatory concerns about combining an enormous streaming platform in Netflix with another enormous streaming business called HBO. And if you have HBO Max for a streaming platform, you would control a giant chunk of the streaming market. And that is not really fair competition, at least in my opinion. And the response illustrates what many observers already suspect. Paramount built some momentum, but this regulatory fight is just getting started. And of course, lawmakers themselves are raising some red flags because of their political alignment and not because this might really be a problem. In fact, it's the normal group of culprits you would expect, like Cory Booker, Chuck Schumer, and Elizabeth Warren, who are really just objecting over ideological situations and the fact that they believe they'll lose another critical element of the propaganda control, the media machine of something like CNN. Yikes. And then we have this. Warner Brothers at this point has given Paramount a deadline, February 23rd, which is just around the corner, as a matter of fact. In the next 2 days, I guess Monday, they want the best and final offer, getting set up for a high-stakes showdown that could reshape the media landscape. Now, I've been predicting for a while that we're going to see more money at the table than was originally projected. I think the $87.7 billion or whatever it is right now will be closer to $108 billion by the end of the conversation. Netflix has been having issues lately with investors having less faith in them as their stock price has been going down consistently. Not that other Hollywood studios aren't experiencing similar or the same kind of situation, because they have. But regulators are still going to watch this as closely as possible, even if there is a financial acceptance there, including the buyout fees that Paramount said that they would take care of for the Netflix deal, which is insane. So regulators are watching very closely. Even with the waiting period behind it, Paramount faces multiple potential regulatory pressure points that, while they probably will likely clear, there's still kind of a barrier there. But that doesn't mean that there's not things moving forward. In fact, here in the story, it says federal officials are reportedly already conducting in-depth reviews of both bids, including outreach to theater chains and Hollywood stakeholders to assess the potential industry impact, which I say will be profound. Not just because you have a streamer trying to pretend they want to participate in the theatrical market, but because you would reduce the total numbers of major studios by one. Is that a real problem? Probably not, but at least we would know that they were going to drive more towards cinematic release. And the value of Paramount Plus as a streaming service is minuscule compared to what would be an enormous gain if HBO Max made it over to Netflix. There's a couple things right there that I think should change some minds. We'll see. So what's Paramount's real strategy? Well, from a strategic standpoint, Paramount's public emphasis on clearing the waiting period appears aimed as much at Warner's shareholders as it is at regulators, giving them the confidence to maybe greenlight this particular deal. And by highlighting early antitrust progress, Paramount's attempting to position its bid as a smoother regulatory path ahead. But again, let's talk about the bottom line. The Paramount antitrust fight is entering its most volatile phase. Yes, Paramount cleared an early procedural hurdle, but major questions remain. And these are the 5 roadblocks that are still in the way. The DOJ can still sue to block the deal, which would be obviously a disaster. Lawmakers are already raising alarms, again, based on ideology rather than the actual, anti-competition that obviously the Netflix deal would be creating. International regulators have not weighed in yet, which is substantial. Ofcom could always screw this up, amongst other organizations around the globe. And Warner shareholders haven't made their decision yet, and Netflix is firmly in the fight. Meaning you're going to get a lot from Ted Sarandos in the coming days and him trying to bloviate about how superior their offer is despite there being less cash. And there will be, like I said, we're going to see a higher number at the cash window when this deal actually goes through. But at this point, it's all just hot air because it's nowhere close to being done. But I suspect we'll be moving forward as of Monday with what's likely to occur. Paramount will move forward even more aggressively. They will be willing to offer more cash, and they will be willing to guarantee a theatrical window, which honestly, Netflix really can't do. especially with the multiple different positions that they've taken over the years. Despite the occasional release of something in cinemas, they really only do that for the awards purposes and because they've checked all the diversity boxes. But it kind of doesn't matter what I think. You're the consumer out there, so let me know what you think. Is the better path forward that Warner Brothers Discovery goes over to Paramount? Is it better that they go over to Netflix? Or, third option, is it better that Warner Brothers Discovery is forced to exist as is, which would include not being allowed to split in half just to pretend that they are removing debt, which is actually just going to lead to further disasters down the road? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. It really does help, and I really want to hear from you. Secondly, do follow up by watching another one of the videos on the channel because we've got a lot of new ones, and that'll help out with the algorithm. And finally, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. For real.